and Africa. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Steffi. And thank you, Professor Yunus, for what I would call a huge wake-up call. We talked yesterday before your panel, and we, I think, discussed for nearly an hour your vision of where this planet is heading and where it could be heading. And while a lot of it looks very bleak if we don't change anything, I think at heart, you're an optimist.
I am. That's why we're celebrating the Super Happiness Festival.
Here we are.
Yeah.
Now, one element, I think, of the optimism that makes up our optimism as a group, that makes up our optimism as the DLD community, I would say, who's an optimist here? Hands up. Wow, everyone. That's 100% turnout. So you're right at home, Professor Yunus. So part of that optimism, and what drives our optimism, is that we've seen time and again that there are entrepreneurs out there who are willing to make a difference. There are entrepreneurs who are willing to risk it all and to drive change. And we have on stage, next to you, two people who are driving entrepreneurship in different ways. We have Fatou, who's currently raising a fund for a venture capital firm in Africa, for Jango. And we have Peter from Mastercard, and not many know this. The Mastercard Foundation is actually the second largest foundation on this planet after the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So let's dive in on entrepreneurship and some of the basic beliefs that we have about entrepreneurship. And Fatou, why don't you give it a go?
Thank you, Martin. Certainly. I think one very strong belief that I have is that talent is something that is very equally distributed, but then the opportunities are not. And when I look at Africa, for instance, and I look at all the hurdles faced by African entrepreneurs, there is one, which is access to funding, which is always very striking to me. So last year, for instance, an African entrepreneur had 90 times less chances of getting access to funding compared to an American one, 17 times less compared to an Indian one. And when you are actually a woman entrepreneur, it's even harder. There is I think, $42 billion funding gap for women entrepreneurs in Africa, when they are recognized to be the most entrepreneurial in the entire world, with 26% of them being entrepreneurs. So from that, let's say, these facts that are not very exciting, there is this belief of leveling up the playing field and saying, okay, if you are able to provide capital, seed capital, to people that are facing today funding gaps, what does it look like in terms of impact? And what we have seen is quite mind-blowing and tremendous. We've seen startups growing, providing access to jobs, providing access to essential services, including even power, education, and healthcare, and creating jobs, especially for people that are the most excluded. Today is the women and the young people. And that's actually my motivation today to start. I'm actually an optimistic, but a pragmatic optimistic. And starting with those facts and finding ways to leverage my own track record to attract more funding and create more trust to back these amazing entrepreneurs.
Peter, what is MasterCard doing to put some money, some technology, some ideas behind what Fatou was saying, enabling entrepreneurs?
So I think the reason I'm sitting here is that we asked exactly the same question, what are we adding to the problems of the world, like 15 years ago? And our idea was, we are a technology company, so we run a network where many people, many governments, many merchants are connected to. And so we have to stick to what we are good at. And our idea is about the idea of including everyone into the technology and the opportunity society can bring. And so we all talk about technology, and technology changes the life of everything and everyone. But what it does mainly is it democratizes the access to everything. And you're either in the system or you're out of the system. And when you're in the system, and the system can be, healthcare, data, financial services, all of these things. You have the opportunity to develop your own business as a person, as a micro business, and you can actually develop and foster much better than without being in the system. So the idea of MasterCard is financial inclusion, or inclusion as such. And so we founded the Mastercard Foundation 15 years ago. This is what they are mainly focused on, providing technology for the problems of the world to make sure that people have the opportunity to have a better life. Because, you know, the world, with the problems we have, can't be successful if half of the world is failing. And if you consider, like 5, 6 years ago, it was 2.5 billion people haven't been connected to the world of financial services or financial inclusion. To our knowledge, that changed by 500 million until now. What is only possible because of what technology has done. And the 500 million before took the world like 10 to 15 years. And we all hope that this will expedite, because there's plenty of opportunity in what technology can do for the world, what technology can do for the problems of the world, to make them better, and for all of us to have a growth that is sustainable for everyone.
How do entrepreneurs get that opportunity? I think there's this famous saying, which I believe is attributed to you, that talent is evenly distributed, but the money just isn't. And you did something about it personally. I think your first loan that you gave out was, what, $27 in a village of your personal money to start microfinance. If we're now trying to tackle the big problem, we need to do this at scale. We need to do social businesses, and we need to for-profit businesses at scale that do social good. How are we going to get that done? Because so far we failed, right? Something needs to give. What is it?
Well, you brought the subject of financing again. And my lifelong work is to condemn the financial system, the way it has been built. It's built in such an asymmetric way. Financial services for the financial institutions are built to provide financial services to people, the banks and others. But they do it in a very funny way. They lend money to people who already have lots of money. They don't lend money to people who don't have money. I said, that's very strange. You should be starting with lending money to people who don't have money. They laugh. The only explanation they had, it cannot be done. And that's where our work came. We started doing that. In $27, you talk about, that's a starting point. Now we lend billions of dollars around the world. In Bangladesh, we lend to 9 million borrowers, mostly women, 97% women, extremely poor women when they join. And over $3 billion with no papers, nothing, no lawyers. Repayment is near 99%. And we extended it to other countries, including United States. United States, we have 25 branches now in 15 cities. Lending out over the last 10 years, we have now 150,000 borrowers, 100% women. Repayment rate is absolutely over 99%, 99.6%. No papers, nothing. So it can, the whole, issue is not about financial institutions, it's wrongly designed financial, which created all those financial institutions responsible for wealth concentration. That's the only one, the top one. If you redesign the system, there'll be no financial wealth concentration. So I'm not talking about finance is not important. I said, I have been arguing my heads off by saying credit is a universal human right. Now they talk about financial inclusion. What about inclusion? Inclusion is a kind of evasive word. It should be non-exclusion. Nobody should be excluded from the financial system because nothing wrong with people. It's wrong with the institution. They say their people are not bank-worthy, credit-worthy. I said, are you kidding me? The banks are not people-worthy. That's the problem. So that's where my position is.
So when we're trying to scale this, Fatou, there are social businesses, but what you're doing is you're backing social good with a profit motive. How is the difference? What challenges do you have? And actually, is the challenge in finding entrepreneurs? Is it in getting the money to finance the entrepreneurs? Is it in the not willingness to accept risk by the community around them?
So
what's the story?
On the African context, I have to say that there is a very strong scarcity of trust, hence of capital. In that context, we had to demonstrate that you are able to attract development players, of course, but also private sector investors. And to attract them, we committed to deliver the same amount of return that traditional businesses. That being said, all the ventures that we are funding today are solving a social problem, whether it is broadening access to market for African SMEs, lowering their trading costs, improving their access to financial services, whether it is broadening access to essential services to African consumers or creating jobs. And for instance, we have a deal flow today of 160 startups. All of them, we know exactly how many green jobs they can create, how many women jobs they can create, how many jobs they create for young people. And the reason why we had to find this model is because, again, the flow of capital was not available to us, or not at a cost that will enable us to strive and invest in those entrepreneurs. So I also believe that together with what Professor just mentioned, we also can find some double bottom line and triple bottom line businesses that can deliver both a return to the shareholder, but most importantly, a return to the society and be sustainable, environmentally speaking. And it's really the heart of our thesis today.
Now, Peter, I'm just going to hold you hostage here for a second. As the representative of big international business. Now, moving away from the foundation, does big international business, the multinational corporations, do they have a role to play in all of this, or is it purely antagonistic?
So first of all, especially if you work for a large multinational company, you can't just go everywhere and do your business. You have to earn the right locally to do whatever you do. And for us, the good thing is with technology, you can do many other things than just payment, right? From healthcare, from finance, from data, to support different people in need, right? And this is how we see our role to play, right? To give something back to the communities we work in. I mean, Africa is a very good example, but it doesn't stop there. And not being included is not only a problem for the developing countries, it's also a problem for the US, for more Western countries, for Asia, that many people are just not in the system and can actually use the benefits of it. There are many, many examples. One, for example, when you're a micro farmer in Africa, you usually sell the crop what you're having to people that come by where you actually live. And so if you need the money, you sell these to these people. If you have access to information like wholesale prices, like dealers, like a microcredit, like Professor Yunus is doing it, you maybe can bridge 1 or 2 weeks to actually make sure that the crop is ripe and you get more to actually feed your family and do something for your community. So this is the idea. Especially, companies like the one I work for, we have to take this serious, right? It starts internally, it's an external mission to actually earn the right. It starts internally that people need to bring their heart to work and not only just their body to work from meetings to meetings, right? People have to feel that, and you have to play your role in wherever you do business.
Now, in best DLD fashion, we are running over time, and we have just a small problem to talk about, the future of the world, so 25 minutes isn't going to do this justice. So let me just go very specific to finish this out. 2020, the question is, what are you adding? And let me go back to last year, optimism and courage. What are you going to do in 2020 that gives all of us optimism and courage? And who else in this DLD community would you like to talk to work on that project? Fatou, you want to give it a go?
Sure. When we talk about optimism and courage, it's very important. The sense of urgency that we have today is strong in Africa. The reason is, according to a study, the motivation of actually some people to take boats or to even sometimes go to terrorism is lack to economic opportunities. And that's why this year what we want to do is to pledge that the new VC fund that we are raising, which is 60 million euros, will 100% back social ventures in Africa, 50% of them being co-founded and benefiting women.
Okay. Peter.
Yeah, many things. Some of the companies that are today represented in this room, thank you, work already for us for the many pledges we are supporting. So if you feel that your company, the company you run, the company you founded, has to contribute anything to the idea of inclusion to the modern world and want to distribute that to roughly 3 billion people and roughly 50,000 corporates that are connected to this network, be our guest. Right? It's an open invite for everyone. To give you one example, one of our partners is the United Nations World Food Programme. We try to donate, together with our partners, 100 million school meals per year, because we all know what education for the personal development, for the development of a society does. We are happy if anybody of you would think about it, and please be our guest. You're more than welcome.
Wonderful. Professor Yunus, the final comment from your side.
Well, my comment would be that we have been following a certain road that laid down by the theories and the concepts that we follow and we glorify them. That old road has led us to the disaster path. We are in the cliff now. We're going to go down, finish. So before it's too late, we have to turn around. Old roads will always take us to the old destination. We have to build a new destination, which is not a disaster path, which is a path of a new world. And the new destination has to be reached by building new roads. Old roads will never take you to the new destination. New destination needs new roads. That's what we should be building up rather than following the old roads. And we should not make our children, our next generation who are coming, who are very capable, very well aware of the world, highly capable of technology. That's the most powerful generation in the entire human history, because technology has made them that powerful. And I mentioned about will. If we have the will, we'll make it happen, change it around, turn it around, find the new roads, and get it there. So our children should have that will. Our old thoughts should not contaminate their minds. We need to change our theories, our schools, and everything. But a school is producing old thinking process. And that's why these are job-oriented schools. Human beings are not born to be job seekers. Human beings are born as entrepreneurs. Every single human being is basically an entrepreneur. But the theory has taught us, go to school, get a degree, and get a job. That's what damaged the whole thing. A creative person, completely damaged, is no good in a creative person. Job takes away all the creativity. It's the entrepreneur who uses the creativity. So how to make every human child as a creative person, as an entrepreneur? This system of education will not make it happen. We have to redesign that and make sure our old thoughts do not destroy them. That's the best care we can take and create that world. And I talk about a world of 3 zeros. 0 poverty, 0 unemployment, 0 net carbon emission. And that's the world we want to reach as soon as possible, maybe in next 20 years, 25 years. And it has to be a new civilization completely. Old civilization has failed us. We have to get out of this old civilization, move into a new civilization. That's the path that we have to design and to get in. Thank you.